الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله.
الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. أما بعد فقد قال الله سبحانه وتعالى في القرآن المجيد بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. صدق الله العظيم وصدق رسوله النبي الكريم ونحن على ذلك من الشاهدين والشاكرين والحمد لله رب العالمين. Indeed, all praise belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I bear witness that there is no God but Allah, and Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is his final prophet and messenger. Alhamdulillah, by the mercy and the grace of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blessed each and every single one of us to be able to visit the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala once again and seek the reward and the blessings from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, one of the main purposes of having the khutbah, of having the talk, the Friday sermon, is to address the issues concerning the Muslim Ummah, to address the issues concerning the community and the society that we live in. And this is to be done, as we know, on a weekly basis. With that being said, today I want to talk about the major issue that all of us are witnessing. Issue that we are witnessing in this country, which could possibly, most likely be a turning point in the history of this nation. And that is in regards to the rights of minorities, of people who have been held down for far too long. And in order for us to understand this, a mere 15-minute khutbah is not going to be enough for us. This is the part where I will give you the highlights of what is happening, and then it is mandatory, I'm using the word mandatory, for us to educate ourselves about what is happening and how we can be a part of this massive, momentous, historic change that this nation is going through. Sitting on the sidelines and not doing anything is not an option for us. We can think that these issues might not exist or they might not impact us, but they do, whether we like it or not. And of course, the issue we're talking about today is the issue that is on everyone's mind, that is on every media channel, every publication that you open up that you will see, the issue of Black Lives Matter. Of course, there's no disagreement, no common sense person, no human being who has any sense will tell you that doesn't matter. Of course, everyone will tell you that it matters. And for us Muslims, when we look at this from the Islamic perspective, of course we know that all lives are equal in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Muslim and non-Muslim, that's a different thing. But a life is a life. Male, female, white, black, rich, poor, young, old, doesn't matter. A soul is a soul. And it is to be protected and preserved. No doubt about it. These are the teachings of Islam. But in the current context, it's important for us to understand what role should the Muslims be playing. Should we, first of all, be even playing a role or not? Number one. And number two, if so, then what should that be? The answer to the question, the first question, should we be engaged in this or not? And I've already answered that briefly. That of course we should be, because it is part of the community and the society that we are living in. And Islamically, it is an obligation for us to be engaged in the affairs of the communities that we are living in as well. Second, how do we engage ourselves in this then? Now, it's important for us to distinguish, and this is, getting into the details a little bit here, distinguish between the movement of, everyday common folk that is out there, fighting for the rights or demonstrating, whatever you want to call it. Important for us to distinguish between those and the organization itself. Those are two different things. And most of the analysts, they tell us that they do have separate goals in their agendas as well. And for us as Muslims, it's important for us to understand this, that we don't blindly follow any organization or support any organization, especially if it is at the cost of sacrificing our religious values. A few minutes again is not going to be enough for me to explain that to you, but here's what it means. As Muslims, we will support anyone and everyone who is oppressed, whose rights are being taken. And all of us who can do this in various capacities. There's no one way for us to do it. All of us, we have our strengths and weaknesses. Not all of us will be going out to a protest. Not everyone is going to be writing about it. Not everyone is going to be speaking about it. Not everyone is going to stand up and give a talk about it. All of us, we have our various strengths, various weaknesses, and we must utilize our strengths for what we can do with it. That's an obligation on it. And if we look at this historically, this started, this issue that came about did not happen 2-3 weeks ago with the murder of George Floyd. Did not happen. This issue has existed in this country for many, many, many years, decades. And this is where the education part comes into place here. That it is important for us to educate ourselves on the history of this nation. Most of us, as I look across here, I would say that we are all immigrants here. Some may be, new, but some of us have been here for many years. And when we have made this country our homeland, we're married here, we're getting married here, we have children here, we have grandchildren here. That tells us that we have made this our homeland. And we have no intention of going back to wherever country we migrated from, we immigrated from. Sometimes we might act like it, that we're going back and we have these dreams, but the reality is it's not happening. It's not happening. Therefore, then it makes an obligation on us to know about the history of this country, the history of this nation. And when we study that and we, understand that, then things will it will make it more easier for us to understand the current situation that we are in. If we don't look at it from the historical perspective, then nothing is going to make sense. It's going to be like, why are they doing this? Why are they rioting? Why are they protesting? And all of these things. These are questions that are going to come to our mind. And the issue here is not just of, abuse of authority. It's a systematic issue that exists in this nation. And that is going to take time for it to rectify. It's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to happen in a few weeks or a few months. It's going to take time. And we have to be part of the process of that. We have to be part of the process of making that change. This is an issue that has existed for many, many, many years. It's important for us to understand, how the African Americans were brought to this nation, the earlier struggles that they had, the civil war of this nation. What was the Civil War about? If I were to ask you here, how many people would be able to explain to you, explain to me, or explain to each other what the Civil War was in this country? Many people may not even know there was a civil war. How many historical African American figures do we know about, or have you heard about, besides Muhammad Ali, Martin Luther King, and Malcolm X? Can you name 3 or 4 other historical Black and African American figures, Muslim or non-Muslim? Besides these, really, how much do we know? And if we don't know that, then it is important for us to know about these people, know about these struggles, and then it will make sense for us to understand the current situation that we are in and what needs to happen. And this issue, brothers and sisters, exists in every level of the society that you see. The struggle of the African American brothers and sisters, Muslim or not Muslim. If they're Muslim, it's even more. If they're Muslim, it's even more because they're already a minority, and on top of that, they're a minority amongst the minority. And I was just looking at this yesterday, that a survey that was done last year, much before than what is happening now. They tell us that approximately between 64 and 70% of the African Americans in this country, they feel like they're discriminated against. This is just African Americans, okay? But when that same survey was done between African American Muslims, that number, what do you think that number went up to? It went up to 91%. 91% of them said that, yes, they feel discriminated against. So it's important for us to understand their situation, where they're coming from, the contributions that they have made for this society, the contribution that they have made in the building of this nation. This nation is built on the backs of those brothers and sisters. And for as Muslims as well, 20% of the Muslims in this nation, in this country, are African Americans. Most of the earlier masajids that were established in this nation were established by the African American brothers and sisters. It is their shoulders that you and I are standing upon, not our own, their shoulders. It's important for us to recognize this and understand this. And I cannot stress that enough. We should not be wasting our time, watching, searching on Netflix to see what document, what serial should I watch, or what soap opera should I watch, or what movie should I watch. Spend this time in educating yourself and your children as well, because that's very important for us. It's important for us to understand this ourselves first and foremost, and then educate our children as well. So to summarize this is the summary. That it is an obligation on us as Muslims to stand up for what is right. Stand up for the truth. Stand up and support those who are oppressed. But that standing up and supporting can and will vary from person to person, to organization to organization. And here I'm talking about, in particular, the Muslims, the Muslim organizations, and the Muslim masajids and the Islamic centers. Their level of support will vary. How they will support this. They will support this in maybe financial ways, maybe giving their platform, letting them utilize our resources, and so on and so forth, and on an individual basis as well. Individually, what can we do? Number one, of course, as I said, and I cannot stress this enough, is to educate ourselves. Educate ourselves about the cause. Educate ourselves about the history. Educate ourselves about what is happening. Who is who? And then see what is it that we can do best on an individual level. Whether it is financial contribution or contribution distribution of our talent. If I am a medical doctor, for example, if I can offer my services for those who are who might not be as privileged as others are, because statistics tells us that this inequality is rampant in the society. Inequality in everything that you can think of, whether it is the job market, whether it is education, whether it is healthcare, whether it is all of these things. There's inequality in all those things. And if it is one of those things that I can assist with, then I must do so. For example, if my specialty, I'm IT, my background is IT, if I can help our African American brothers and sisters maybe in setting up a website for their business, for their masjid, for their organization, now is the time for me to use my talent. Similarly, if you're a medical doctor, if you have a business, if you're financially well off, if you can assist those brothers and sisters, then you must do so. But it should be done. It's not an option of should we or should we not be. Yes, we should. How we do it, that will differentiate. That will be different from person to person, from organization to organization. Now, the last point that I want to mention here is, again, it goes back to not knowing about the issues, not having enough information, and then just going along with the flow. In the sense that we see someone chanting slogans, and it's a feel-good slogan, we'll go ahead and join that. It doesn't work that way. Life doesn't work that way. Reality doesn't work that way. Whatever we say and whatever we do, we are responsible for our actions. And it is important, very important for us to understand that we cannot paint everyone with the same paintbrush, with a wide stroke, and say that everyone in law enforcement is corrupt. We just cannot do that. From a moral perspective, from a religious perspective, we can't. Think about it this way. Anytime something bad happens, there might be a bombing or there might be an attack, automatically we know the routine. What happens? The Muslims are blamed. And then we feel like, we have to defend ourselves. And then we tell everyone, don't compare us to them. They're not one of us. They're not like us. We're not them. They're not us. We go through this routine, right? Think about it the same way. If we are saying that everyone in law enforcement is the same and we're against everyone, we're not doing anyone a favor. We're not being fair. We have to be fair. And we have to be just to ourselves and others as well. And this is a tradition from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And I'll just mention one hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And this hadith, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam tells us, "Iyyakum wad-dhann, fa inna ad-dhanna akdhabu al-hadith, wa la tahassu, wa la tajassasu, wa la tahasadu, wa la tadabaru." The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, "Beware of suspicion, for suspicion is the worst of false tales. And do not look for others' faults, and do not spy." So the summary of this hadith of the Prophet says, always look good, always look for what is good in others. Don't look for faults. Of course, if it's something obvious, then of course we have the obligation to stand up against it. But we cannot just simply put everyone in the same bucket and then think we're doing something good or something beneficial for the society, or we're standing up for the truth. We would not be doing so. So the point to take home today, inshallah, is number one, educate ourselves about the issues, educate ourselves about the history of this nation, educate ourselves about the history of this country that we have adopted, that we are living in, that we are getting married in, that we are having children in, that we are having our grandchildren in. Yet when we look at what we know about the history, it might be very little. And it's not fair. It's not fair for anyone involved. Educate ourselves, understand the issues, and then each and every single one of us in our individual capacity do what we can for standing side by side with those who are oppressed, for those whose rights have been taken, for those who are suffering, whether they're Muslims or not Muslims. It doesn't matter. We stand up for the truth. We stand up for justice for everyone. Allahumma salli wa sallim wa barik ala Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in bi rahmatika ya arhamar rahimin. Alhamdulillah. الحمد لله حمدا كثيرا كما امر، اشهد ان لا اله الا الله وحده لا شريك له، واشهد ان سيدنا ونبينا محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وسلم. اما بعد، قال الله سبحانه وتعالى في القران المجيد بعد اعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم: ان الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا ايها الذين امنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى اله وصحبه اجمعين، خصوصا خليفه رسول الله سيدنا ابو بكر الصديق رضي الله تعالى عنه وعلى المؤمنين سيدنا عمر بن الخطاب رضي الله تعالى عنه، وعلى المؤمنين سيدنا عثمان بن عفان رضي الله تعالى عنه، وعلى المؤمنين سيدنا علي بن ابي طالب رضي الله تعالى عنه، وعلى بقيه تمام العشره المبشره وتمام اهل البيت الصلاه والسلام الدائمين المتلازمين الى يوم الدين. اللهم اعز الاسلام والمسلمين وذل الشرك والمشركين ودمر اعداء الدين. اللهم انصر من نصر دين محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم واجعلنا منهم، واخذل من خذل دين محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم ولا تجعلنا منهم. اللهم انصر الاخوان المستضعفين في كل مكان، في سوريا وفي كشمير وفي فلسطين وفي اليمن وفي الصين وفي بورما وفي كل مكان يا رب العالمين. اللهم انصر الاخوان المجاهدين الذين يجاهدون في سبيلك في كل مكان. اللهم اغفر لجميع المؤمنين والمؤمنات والمسلمين والمسلمات الاحياء منهم والاموات، انك يا مولانا سميع قريب مجيب الدعوات يا رب العالمين. عباد الله رحمكم الله، ان الله يامر بالعدل والاحسان وايتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون. اذكروا الله يذكركم وادعوه يستجب لكم ولذكر الله اكبر والله يعلم ما تصنعون. اقيموا الصلاه.
الله أكبر الله أكبر، أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح، قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة. الله أكبر الله أكبر، لا إله إلا الله.
Make sure your lines are straight. We're not standing shoulder to shoulder, but we should still make sure that the lines are straight. Make sure your phone is switched to silent. Allahu Akbar. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. والضحى والليل إذا سجى ما ودعك ربك وما قلى وللآخرة خير لك من الأولى ولسوف يعطيك ربك فترضى ألم يجدك يتيما فآوى ووجدك ضالا فهدى ووجدك عائلا فأغنى فأما اليتيم فلا تقهر وأما السائل فلا تنهر وأما بنعمة ربك فحدث. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. الخناس الذي يوسوس في صدور الناس من الجنة والناس. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. Just a reminder that you should be praying Sunnah at your homes. And when you're exiting, make sure you take your shoes and exit from the front. And one announcement that I have in regards to tomorrow, inshallah, tomorrow we have an event here starting at 6:30 p.m. It is an outdoor event on the issue of what I talked about, Black Lives Matter. It's an event in coordination with CIOTC, Council of Islamic Organization of Greater Chicago. We have a number of speakers that will be here, including Congressman Sean Casten, who will be here as well. That's tomorrow at 6:30 p.m. out in here, but outside in the parking lot, inshallah. And we request for all of you to join us for that event, inshallah. Again, make sure that you're praying Sunnah at home, you're abiding by the guidelines. The more we abide by the guidelines, inshallah, the more quickly we will get back to the way we were. If we fail to abide by the guidelines, then we're making things difficult for us ourselves. Please make sure that you pray Sunnah at home, inshallah. Jazakallah.